Hey everyone. So, if you're working with data, you're probably a pro at figuring out how to store it. But what happens after that? Today, we're going to dig into the real action, the activities and processes that use and transform data as it moves through a system. Right, let's get into it. We spend so much time designing these beautiful databases, right? Perfecting the tables, the relationships, making sure our data has a safe place to live. That's data at rest. But the real magic happens when that data is in motion. How do we actually map out its journey? From the moment a user clicks a button, all the way through our systems and back out again. That is the big question we're tackling.
Okay, so first things first. The real world is, well, it's messy. Every day, people are doing all sorts of things in all sorts of ways. If we're going to build good software, we can't just try to automate that chaos. We've got to find the core logic hidden inside. So how do we cut through the noise and simplify all that real-world activity?
We start by making a really critical distinction. On one side, you've got the business process. This is the how. It's the nitty-gritty of how things get done right now. The people involved, the paper forms they fill out, the specific software they use, it's the whole shebang. But on the other side, we have the system process, and this is the pure what. It strips away all those physical details to focus only on the essential data transformation. It's the underlying logic, and it doesn't care if it's done by a person, a supercomputer, or an app on a phone.
And that's the absolute key. A system process is the distilled, essential version of what's happening. When we focus on this, we stop modeling the clunky, maybe inefficient way things are done today. Instead, we're defining the fundamental work that has to happen to the data, no matter what. And that gives us a stable blueprint for building systems that can actually last. Okay, so we know we need to focus on these essential system processes. That's a great start, but how do we see how they all connect? How do we actually draw a map of our data's journey as it zips around the organization? Well, this is where something called a data flow diagram, or DFD, becomes our best friend.
At the heart of our map is the system process. We usually draw it as a box with rounded corners. Just think of this as an action station. It's any place where data comes in, gets changed, and then something new comes out. Like calculate sales tax or validate user login.
Of course, a process can't do any work without information. It needs raw materials. And that data comes from a data store. This represents our data at rest. It could be a database table, a simple file, basically any place information is just sitting, waiting to be used.
And finally, once the data is transformed, it usually has to go somewhere. That destination is an external entity, which we draw as a sharp-cornered square. This is anything outside our system that either sends data in or receives it. It could be a customer, a vendor, maybe another department system. And those arrows connecting everything? Those are the data flows. They are the highways our information travels on.
So our DFD shows all the pathways, which is awesome. But let's pause for a second. What's actually on those highways? When we draw an arrow and label it order information, what does that little packet of data actually contain? We have to define the cargo.
Okay, here comes the official term for this data packet, a virtual entity class. Now, don't let the fancy name scare you. The idea is super simple. It's just a logical bundle of data attributes that travel together. The key thing is, it isn't necessarily just one table from your database. It's the specific collection of information needed for that exact step, like customer inquiry, which might pull a customer's name from one table and their recent activity from another.
And this table just makes it crystal clear. That abstract arrow on our map, the one labeled order details, it maps directly to a concrete set of data fields we all get. Order ID, the product SKU, quantity, price. See? This is how we connect our big picture process map to the nitty-gritty data structure. It makes sure we know exactly what information is moving around.
All right, so we've got our map, the DFD, and we know what's in the shipping containers, the virtual entity classes. But you can imagine, these diagrams could get huge and complicated, right? A total spiderweb. So how do we figure out which processes are the most important ones to focus on for automation? How do we find the real core units of work?
The secret is to start thinking in terms of events. An essential system process is basically the system's complete reaction to a single thing that happens in the business world. It's not just one tiny little step, it's the whole bundle of things that need to fire off when something important occurs, like a customer submitting an order.
And here's how you find one. It's basically a three-step recipe. First, some external business event happens. Bam! A customer submits a payment. That's our trigger. Second, we list out all the little system processes that have to respond to that. We've got to validate the funds, update the account, generate a receipt. Third, we just bundle all those related tasks together and give them one name: Process Customer Payment. Now we have a perfect self-contained unit that's ready for design and automation.
So we've journeyed from the messy real world to these clean, event-driven, essential processes. You might be wondering, why go through all this trouble? What is the actual real-world payoff for thinking this way?
Oh, the benefits are huge. For starters, it shifts our whole mindset from just thinking about static data to understanding the dynamic flow of how work actually gets done. And because these models are totally technology independent, they last way longer than any single piece of software. This approach creates a common language. It bridges that frustrating gap between what the business wants and what the developers build. And maybe most importantly, by finding these core event-driven processes, we identify the most valuable things to automate, which leads directly to systems that are way more stable, efficient, and truly aligned with the business.
This quote just nails it, doesn't it? When we focus on the essential data and what happens to it, the what, we end up with a blueprint for our systems that is so much more robust and long-lasting than if we just tried to copy the messy, constantly changing how of the way we do things today.
So I'll leave you with a question to chew on. Now that you have this way of looking at things, a way to map how data truly moves and transforms, what hidden bottlenecks or unnecessary steps are you going to find in your own organization? What new opportunities for making things better will suddenly jump out at you? Hey, if you found this breakdown helpful, do me a favor and share it with a colleague who might get something out of it too. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure to subscribe for more deep dives into the world of data.